Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today for this webinar on coping with grief. This is because there's a grief awareness week happening at the moment, and we thought it might be a good idea to open a discussion about this. And a lot of people are going through a lot of hardship at the moment, so it's good to find some support networks to be able to discuss this amongst each other and help to support each other more and be open about it as well, as this is a quite sensitive and intense topic to discuss, of course. I'm Elissa Makris, a business psychologist at Thrive, and today with me I have Johanna, who's also a business psychologist at Thrive. Hi, Johanna.
Hi everyone. I'm glad so many came to this session today, and I hope this will be helpful for you.
Thank you. So, yeah, as we said, this is quite a sensitive topic, and there will be strong emotions that might arise at any point during this webinar. So, please do reach out to your support network and lean on them. If you feel like you need to leave the webinar a bit earlier than expected, please do reach out to support. I'm going to share a support link with you where you can find support. We will be talking about this later on a little bit more about the options that you can access for further signposting, as well as finding that social support network. And please feel free to use the chat function for any discussions that you have amongst each other, as well as any points that you would like to bring in. There's also the Q&A function where you can ask any questions and we will bring them in as appropriate, but mostly we will come to this at the end of the session. So this webinar should last around 40 minutes, including a 10-minute Q&A at the end. So yeah, the topics that we will be covering is what is bereavement and different types of loss, stages of grief, the effects of grief on our mental and physical health, how to cope and when to seek help, as well as how to support someone else who might be going through bereavement at the moment. So, what is bereavement? The death of a loved one is one of the greatest sorrows that can occur in one's life, of course. Bereavement is the state of experiencing, of losing someone that we care or love about. So, it may also be other changes like the end of a relationship, moving to a new place, or watching someone else we care about declining in their health, as, for example, seeing a relative fight with cancer. We may also realize that we're in the middle of this collective bereavement at the moment. We're all losing something at this time. Many people are reckoning with individual losses, including illness and death due to the coronavirus itself, or loss of employment as a result of economic upheaval. But even people who haven't lost anything so concrete as a job or loved one, they're also affected. We are in a communal bereavement as we may watch our work, healthcare, education, and economic systems, all of these systems that we depend on, destabilize. Loss can also be ambiguous as well. This is any loss that's unclear or lacks a clear resolution. During the pandemic, many of us have felt a loss of a lifestyle, of the ability to meet with our friends and extended family. There may be loss of trust in our government, but also the loss of our freedom to move about in our daily lives as we used to. There could be the loss of education or the loss of educational experiencing that we used to have, so given that the school closures, maybe modified opening times, and virtual schooling as well. So it's the loss also of rituals such as weddings, maybe graduations and funerals, and even going to the gym. So ambiguous loss elicits the same experiences of grief as a more tangible loss, but managing it often requires a little bit more creativity as well. So grief is the emotional, cognitive, and behavioral response to loss. It is similar to depression in many ways. However, grief is a natural reaction to losing someone close to us. Grief can be difficult and stressful, and nearly everybody goes through it at some point in their lives. Despite this, it can be very difficult to predict how we might react to a loss, as it is a very individual process. What I mean with that is that people react differently to bereavement. Losing a parent may cause a different emotional reaction in yourself than it does maybe in your sibling or a friend of your parents. Some may seem completely unaffected or even more active than usual. Others may break down and can't even get out of the bed anymore. Emotions may come and go unexpectedly. These emotions can fluctuate between acceptance and denial. There is really no wrong way to process the loss of someone. The best way we can do it is to let our minds work through it and give ourselves the time and really the compassion to do it in peace. So this then brings us on to the stages, which Johanna will explain a little bit further.
Yes, so stages of grief. So there is a consensus of opinion that we experience grief in a general pattern. So some of us may move through different stages as we experience grief, or have to accomplish different tasks which we have to go through during grieving. And some people talk about the stages of grief as shock or denial, the overwhelming chaos of emotions, including anger, guilt, despair, the flatness and feeling of depression that comes with the realization that this is the reality of what has happened. However, stages of grief are not set in stone. So many people don't go through all of them, and many people can move back and forth between different stages. So they each may take a different amount of time for different people. So yeah, as Elissa said, there's no right or wrong way to experience this, and we all go through different steps and stages. So the acceptance stage is when we are trying to come in terms with what has actually happened. So some of us might experience thoughts like, if only I had done more, or this is not fair. So here some people go through a period of denial, bargaining, anger, perplexity, maybe shock and confusion at first, while some people really accept it right away. So it depends on the circumstances, obviously. And the shock provides emotional protections from becoming overwhelmed, especially during the early stages of grief. And it can last a long time. So you might find that you feel numb after loss. So this is a natural and helps us to process what has happened at a pace that we can manage, and not before we are ready, right? So it is natural, and it can be a helpful stage. So the only problem being if numbness is the only thing we feel, and none of the other feelings associated with grief, as this can cause us to feel stuck or frozen in this stage. And in this stage, the person we lost is still present in our habits and thoughts. So we may find ourselves saying hello to an empty house, or setting the table for the person who has passed on. And every time this happens, it hurts. And as it is a reminder of the loss whenever we realize what we are doing and what the reality is. At the end of the stage, we have managed to accept that loss is real and it happened. So this may lead to the hardest stage of all, experiencing the pain of our loss. So the pain of grief can be so bad that some of us may only feel this anger, guilt, high distress, hopelessness, regrets, or even suppress it completely in order to protect ourselves from fully experiencing the loss. In this stage, it is very important to let ourselves go through whatever we have to go through, because only then we will be able to fully accept that we have to move on in the end. And it's okay to feel tired, hopeless, like you have lost perspective, or you need to be alone or around others. And you have thoughts maybe like everything is a struggle, or what's the point? And it's just we have to try to be patient and compassionate with ourselves during this time. And as these emotions subside, we start adjusting to the new reality. So this often means building new habits, finding new interests, forming new relationships, and even moving somewhere else. And this stage can be still very hard. And the adjustment process can still bring back memories which rekindle the pain of the loss. But finally, we start to put less emotional energy into grieving and adjusting, and we start to find new things that occupy our lives, and we start to acknowledge the implications of the loss and the new circumstances, and yeah, just start preparing ourselves to move forward in a new direction. And we are finally ready to move on. So this does not mean we don't miss the person we lost. We will definitely, and it also doesn't mean that we won't feel the grief when something reminds us of this person we loved or love. And this is all normal. And however, our memories will more often give us comfort than pain at this stage. So I will hand back to Elissa to continue with how grief can affect us.
Yeah. So, of course, grief can affect us in many ways. There are three key components in the way it can affect us. It involves the emotional and the emotions and the challenges which we experience, the behavioral responses, and the physical manifestations. Grief may also cause physical and mental illness. There's no right or wrong of how someone should feel or be affected by a loss, as we all have our individual ways of coping with this bereavement. So, in other words, how grief affects us varies greatly from one person to the next because of various factors like the variability in the individual circumstances, such as, let's say, the type of relationship. Is it a parent? Is it a child, a spouse, a sibling, a friend? The strength and attachment or intimacy of the person who has died, the situation surrounding their death, like the type of loss. Was it a sudden or unanticipated loss? Was it gradual and anticipated or a natural cause? Was it a suicide, an accident, or homicide? Or the number of losses that were experienced, or the amount of time spent anticipating the death, individuals' interpretation as well, the pre existing personality, unique vulnerabilities, age and health, spirituality and cultural identity, coping strategies, resources, and support. So, all of these individual differences affect the way we experience and process a loss. They can be protective factors that can help us cope better, but they can also be vulnerabilities that we might need to work on in order to be able to cope in healthier ways. So, this four-stage process of grief can be very emotional, and the stages are not necessarily following each other in neat order, as Johanna said. We may jump back and forth between them, and the accompanying emotions may fluctuate wildly. The most common emotion, of course, is this deep sadness. We can also find ourselves crying frequently and feeling absolutely exhausted for seemingly no reason at all. There are other emotions that don't tend to be part of this grieving process. It is important to recognize that whatever we feel during this period is likely connected to our underlying pain. As such, it might not necessarily be wise to act on them. For instance, we may feel intense anger or feel irritable. Losing someone is painful and can seem unfair, like an unfair thing to happen. You may find that you feel angry or frustrated and want to find something or someone to blame for the loss, so that can so that it can try maybe to make sense to you. This is still normal, but it is important to reflect upon these intense emotions by trying to keep in mind that our anger may not be about the person we are angry with. The anger might also be directed at ourselves or at the person who has passed away. So, when this type of emotion occurs, it is important to take time to think this through and explore where this anger is really coming from. If we do this, we might realize that it is actually sadness, that it is so overwhelming that it will become something else. It is best to try not to act on angry feelings until we are sure that they are justified. We may also feel overwhelming guilt. Many often blame themselves when a loved one has passed away. This is very common, and the emotion is also perfectly normal. It is also important to understand that it is almost never justified. Never had the chance, perhaps, for things that we should have done. No relationship is perfect. However, it's important not to let guilt consume us. If this feeling is too strong, we may need some outside support to get through it. It might be an indicator that we need more attention from a professional to help us work through these emotions. So we can feel all of these, or we can feel none of these things. As we said before, there's no right or wrong to feel when facing loss. Some people seek help immediately by showing their emotions and talking to people. Others prefer to deal with things slowly, quietly, and by themselves. Here, I would like to bring in a point about meditation, because meditation can help us to process and explore painful experience and intense emotions by allowing us to pay attention to them with a calm awareness. It can take a long time to be able to do this on your own, and I would recommend a guided meditation maybe to begin with. But with enough practice, it will help you to gain this deeper understanding of your inner emotional state and help you to start a journey of acceptance. So, typical grief related behaviors can include restless pacing and searching behaviors, forgetfulness, and loss of concentration. Many people struggle with sleep, often finding it difficult to settle or finding themselves waking up early. Also, people in grief may lose interest entirely in the things they normally enjoy and may begin to neglect their own health and relationships with those around them. Some people may want to avoid all company, while others might want to be alone. Then there's the physical manifestations of grief. In the case of a sudden death, the physical effects of stress and anxiety-related symptoms can be profound. Nightmares or disturbed dreams can be really common, as can intrusive images or flashbacks, often leading to weight changes and tiredness, which interfere with our ability to care for ourselves. Also frequent are typical anxiety symptoms, including the unconscious bodily responses caused by fight or flight responses to threats, such as a stomach ache, heart racing, and being this hypersensitive to noise even. Sometimes physical ill health can be a symptom of grief, as our immune system is strongly affected by stress as well. All of these feelings, thoughts, sensations, and behaviors are completely normal during this process of grieving. It's important to recognize that you need to take care and look after yourself more than you would normally. Now, Johanna will talk a little bit about what advice we would give during this grieving process, and then she will touch upon where to seek help, when to seek help, and what support options are available to you.
Yes, thanks, Elissa. So there's no way to tell how long the grieving process will last, but generally it may take from 12 to 24 months. And most people consider it over when thoughts of the person we lost are no longer daily, or if they are no longer associated with this deep pain. And they may change to comforting, pleasant memories of the good times we had with this person we love. As it may take a long time, it can be helpful to talk to people we trust and who may be able to help us reflect, give us support, and share our experiences. It is also helpful to share the grief with others who also knew the person we lost and support each other throughout. So you don't need to be best friend with someone to connect with them. Just ask yourself what your preferred support system might be. Maybe it is helpful to reach out for your community, including like family, friends, maybe colleagues, or an online group. And you will realize that you're not alone with these feelings and emotions. Another aspect is self-care, and it's really important to keep ourselves functioning. Try to sleep enough and eat regular and healthy meals. Do not use alcohol or drugs to numb your feelings. Alcohol and drugs tend to make it difficult in the long term for you to manage these feelings. Rather, really try to go for a walk or read books sometime to allow yourself a distraction. Grief can be painful and exhausting, but most people find that in time, that over time things become easier. And understanding the grief process and the common stages of grief cycle can be really helpful here. So it can be a good idea to familiarize yourself with these and keep them in mind during the periods when difficult feelings come up. Also take each day at a time. So there might be good days and bad days, and try to focus on each day at a time and set yourself small achievable goals. You may also like to make a memory box. You may find it helpful to fill a box with items which prompt happy memories of the person who died, as these can help lift your mood sometime when you feel down. And the box can contain anything that is meaningful and helpful for you. So for example, it can be your a favorite book of this person, quotes, photos together, letters, poems, notes to yourself, maybe a toy, a perfume, a smell that's important to you. So anything which helps you to remember this person. You may also want to learn your triggers. So it's normal for certain things to trigger difficult feelings or painful memories about the loss. So by taking note of what causes your mood to change, you can gradually learn how to best cope with triggers when they happen. So you could, for example, try tracking your feelings using a journal or a mood journal, which you also have access to in the Thrive app. But you can also write them down in a book or on a letter, just to allow yourself to track when you feel better, what helped you to feel better, when you felt worse. So just learning these triggers can help you to cope with these emotions. Also, don't judge yourself. So it's okay and normal to grieve and mourn, and it's also normal to have a hard time accepting the loss. So really allow yourself time, have patience with yourself, and maybe make a self-care box for times when you're struggling or loss overwhelms you, which can be anything which helps you to feel better, like movies, books, notes, or a song, just something which makes you feel better. However, we are not always able to cope with our grief on our own. So really don't be afraid to ask for help and to seek support. And we have here different, so while grief can be an unpredictable process with changeable intense emotions, it shouldn't overwhelm us completely. So sometimes bereavement can be so powerful that it may cause a lasting effect on our mental health. And during the earlier stages, we might accept a higher level of distress or dysfunction, but this should not continue for very long. So if this happens, you would likely need some additional help, and potentially maybe from a therapist or from someone who has professional support on bereavement. So there are counselors who specialize in grief and who can offer expert guidance throughout the process. So just talking with a trained professional can help you become more aware of and address your thoughts and feelings following this loss. And it can be useful to have a continuous focused source of support that goes beyond the level of support that friends or family may be able to provide. And some signs you may want to watch out are being unable to sleep for longer periods, not being able to get out of bed anymore, and feeling you can not go on without that person you have lost, not being able to function at work anymore, neglecting yourself or other people in an ongoing way. So just keep these things in mind and allow yourself to seek support if these are something you feel are something you experience. So there are various options available where you could inform yourself or seek support. So for example, the NHS has some information, just search for bereavement on their website. Also, there's a charity called CRUISE that specializes in bereavement support. So please visit them at cruise.org.uk. So we also have this link Elissa shared in the chat, which is really helpful. It offers various support options depending on, for example, the loss you experience. So if it's suicide or if it's a natural cause. So it will help you to guide through different support options. But also your GP might help you to cope with these symptoms you experience. You may also want to speak to employee assistance programs, which can help you with additional support. And you also have the app, which can help you, as we said before, to either, for example, practice mindfulness techniques, but also to track your emotions and feelings and to learn about your triggers. So the next aspect is about if you not yourself experience the loss, but you maybe have someone close to you who's going through grief. And here we have some tips. So the first one is let the person know that you care about them and that you're listening. So you should also ask them maybe, or you could ask them what they need from you. So like any form of support. So just ask them, maybe they actually have a specific need they would like to have support with. Be honest, acknowledge the news by sharing your condolence, saying how sorry you are that their friends or relative has died. And share your thoughts about the person who died, if appropriate, obviously, and tell your friend or relative how much the person will be missed and that they are thinking of them and that you are thinking of them, and remind them that you are there for them as much as you can. So sending a card or a text, email can mean the world to the person. And really don't worry about the right words. The feeling will come across, and it's more important that you say something than that you find the perfect words. This also counts for managers. Please don't avoid the person or the topic. The person will tell you if they prefer not to speak about it. Listen and don't judge. So please remember that it's not personal. If your partner or friend would rather be left alone or spend some time off, it is not because the person does not like to be with you anymore. It may be his or her only accessible coping mechanism for the time being. So if you accept that, you're already very supportive. And however, if you feel that your friend or partner is at risk for themselves or their children, you may ignore the wish for loneliness and really encourage professional support for the person. You may also want to encourage the person to seek support. So, for example, you could provide the person with easily accessible information on bereavement support or signpost them to this professional support. So this might be particularly helpful for people who bereave following a suicide. Here, immediate support is really highly recommended, as bereaved people are at high risk to engage in high-risking behavior, including suicide themselves. So really just give them and support them to seek this support in this difficult time. And encourage self-management. So outline the importance of physical exercise, eating a balanced diet, a routine, so getting up at the same time in the morning and going to bed at the same time, having regular meals, just having this daily routine which would help you to not fall into this cycle. And getting enough rest with sleep also, like really taking care of your sleep or encouraging the person to take care of their sleep. And give the grieving person time. It takes time, as we saw. It might take longer than you expected, but every person is different and every person needs his own time to go through this process. And another last point I would like to make outline is that you take care of yourself. Even though your partner or friend might isolate themselves, try to keep up with seeing your friends and family. It's just so important that you keep in mind that you cannot make up for the loss, but offer him or her support to the level you still feel you can cope with your own life. And just don't blame yourself if you cannot cope with the situation anymore, and allow yourself to ask for example, for consent to seek professional support or seek support for yourself. And it is not a betrayal if you join a support group or talk to a counselor or coach about your own emotions and feelings. So just something to keep in mind, which is really important. We also need to take care of ourselves, to be compassionate for the grieving person. Yeah, this brings us to the end of this session. Hopefully this was helpful. We talked about the different stages of grief, how unique they are for every individual. So there's no right or wrong way to experience grief. And we talked about emotional, behavioral symptoms of grief, as well as how to best go through this process, as well as how to support someone else who is experiencing a loss.
Yeah, thank you, Johanna. And yeah, just keep in mind the signposting options that are available to you. Make sure that you get access to those in order to be able to deal with your bereavement, whatever you're going through at the moment. As we mentioned before, there's many different types of bereavement, many different experiences of loss that people have to go through. So ataloss.org allows you to access all kinds of support groups and networks who are experiencing a similar loss to you. So yeah, we can open up to Q&A now. If people want to send in a question through the Q&A chat function, then we'd be happy to answer them. Just a disclaimer here is that we cannot give very particular individual advice often, as we don't know your individual circumstances too well, but we will try our best to be able to guide you in the right directions in order to help you to find healthy coping mechanisms for what you're facing in the moment. We have one question here. So there's one question. Oh, okay, there's a couple that just came in. Sorry, I need to open the Q&A. Okay, how do you balance your own grief with the grief of another family member also grieving over the same person? Yeah, so this brings us on back to how to support a person who is grieving. And of course, if you're both grieving at the same time, it can be intensified, but at the same time, it can also be a source of support for each other, because knowing who you're grieving for, and you're going through the same grief at the same time. You can experience it together, you can support each other in going through the stages together, talking about exactly the stages and how you're feeling, talk about what is triggering you, what is triggering the other person to feel a certain way, just to be able to process these. And then of course cry together, if you feel that you need to cry, and make sure that you encourage each other to still keep healthy at the same time as well. So make sure that you don't encourage each other to become trapped in the cycle of grief where you cannot get out of bed. So encourage each other to get out of bed together, do something together, sometimes maybe spend some time on reminiscing on memories together about this person, and making sure that you find a healthy balance between the two of you and supporting each other in that sort of way.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good response to this question. There's another one. How long would you advise to wait before beginning accessing bereavement counseling? And to be honest, I think that there's not like a time where you should wait. So if you feel you could benefit from talking about your feelings and emotions with a professional, just reach out to them. They're there for either immediate, but also if you feel like at a later stage of time you want to reach out to them. There's no right or wrong time. However, I feel like the sooner the better. So it can just help you to manage these feelings in a healthier way. And they're obviously also thinking about the aspects we talked about, like if your health is impacted. So like just thinking about the aspects like sleep, how your functioning is, your daily life functioning. If they are strongly impacted, I would highly recommend to reach out as soon as possible. But yeah, they're just really helpful to help you to manage these feelings. And yeah, I think as soon as possible is really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And as soon as you realize that your functioning has declined and you cannot get yourself out of this cycle, you need to be able to find other people who can give you professional support and be able to do that to help you cope better, of course. You said earlier that the grieving process usually lasts 12 to 24 months. Is it normal for it to last longer, or is it that individual to the person as well? Absolutely. Yeah, it is completely individual to the person. It also, like we said, there's so many individual differences. For example, your own vulnerabilities, the loss of the person, who it was, your connection to the person, and as well as how the person has died. Was it an expected or unexpected loss? So there's so many different individual circumstances to the loss that can make the process shorter or longer. It really depends.
There's a rather personal question, but I will try to answer it as general as possible. So if the death was that of a physical abusive parent, is it still normal to grieve? Is it more usual to have a numb response, that particular kind of circumstances? And I think here it's just really important to remember that we all have our own unique way how we respond to grief, and having our own feelings. So there's no right or wrong way how we should feel, even if this person we're grieving about might physically abuse us. So it's just important to keep in mind that we all respond differently to grief, and it might help actually to reflect on this person with someone professional to just help us go through this different emotional stages and see how we can best and healthy respond to them. Yes, we recorded this session and it will be available on our channel, but you will also receive a recording at the end.
Yeah. Okay, there's another question. How do you know that you've moved on. So there are many different stages, of course, and the last stage is adjusting and letting go, as we said before. So this part is when sometimes it's very personal and individual again, but maybe it's when you find out that you can have memories of the person and that the pain is not as intense anymore. Rather, you can have memories of this person and you feel a certain joy and nostalgia from them rather than just feeling deep sadness and pain from them. Then maybe you know that you have kind of adjusted to letting go of the person, but still remembering them, still missing them, of course, but missing them in a way where you feel happiness even when you think about them.
Mm. There's also a question about the current COVID-19 restrictions. Can you provide some advice and guidance for those bereaved during the period who have not been able to say goodbye or follow their cultural religious ceremonies? And in my opinion, Elissa, please feel free to add, but I think we talked about like a memory box, or like you can do your own ceremony process at home to just remember this person and go through your own process to just feel that you are able to say goodbye in your traditional way. So even if it wasn't the way you usually did it, there might be a way you can do that for yourself, like if it's about this box, or like just kind of going through this process where you collect those memories in one place and allow yourself some time to go through them and remember them as a kind of like ceremony process. Just maybe try to do it at home as best as you can, in a way that you feel you honor this person with maybe happy thoughts.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. You can create your own ceremonies and how you want to remember the person, and show appreciation for all of the memories that you've had with them, and certain things that connect you to that person. Like we said, it could be different things. It could be smells, it could be pictures, it could be music. Just remembering the person in your own way and creating your own ceremony when you're not able to do that from the specific place of worship that you would usually go to.
Yes, there's also a question, my mom has terminal cancer, what is your advice to prepare for this grief? And I think the tips we mentioned before, the advice, like making yourself familiar with the grieving process. Maybe you're already in there because obviously you know what's happening. Maybe not exactly when, but you know it will happen maybe soon. So making yourself familiar with it, allowing yourself to feel these emotions, already talking and sharing them with someone. Maybe I'm sure there are also support options out there, like support groups who experience similar losses. So allowing yourself to share these feelings with someone who may have similar experiences, but also with other family and friends who know your mother, for example. Just allowing yourself to start this process already now, I think is the way to cope with it best.
There's another question. How does pregnancy affect the grieving process? I don't have much information on this at the moment, I have to be honest. But of course, the grieving process can affect us physically as well as mentally. So, physically, it can increase our stress levels. It can make us feel maybe our cortisol levels are rising. It can make us feel like we're nauseous to our stomachs. So, it's important to be able to manage these stress levels so that you can go through your pregnancy in a healthy way, and maybe seek out professional support to be able to help you to cope better, to keep your stress levels down so that you don't exert more stress on your body than there should be. Do you have any recommendations on how you will get closure on the loss of a loved one that you weren't able to say goodbye to?
I mean, I think it's a similar response, but allowing yourself to do this memory box where you have these thoughts all collected in one place about this person. Just allowing yourself to say goodbye and taking each time taking each day at a time, and allowing yourself to just acknowledge these, for example, these items, and for pictures, anything you can put in there to go through this goodbye process.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be very difficult to suddenly lose someone unexpectedly, and it can arise many different emotions within you. So try to also process your emotions and the triggers that you might have. So keep in mind the mood journals that you can write into in order to process your emotions and to make sure that you feel that you are able to say goodbye in your own individual way, as we said, in your own rituals, in your own way. Maybe visit places that you've visited with that person before, if they're close to your house right now, of course. So just make sure that you have your own ritual of saying goodbye.
Yeah. Are you aware of any specific support groups for those bereaved by COVID-19? I'm sure the cruise website offers specific support for people who lost someone through Corona crisis. So just visit the website, and they actually specialized their service for this. But also the website Elissa posted, I think you can type in the cause of death. So this can help to find the right support there.
Yeah, ataloss.org has specific support for people who lost loved ones due to coronavirus.
How do I stop the guilt that I feel because I grieve more for one parent than the other, though I love them both very much? I think here acknowledging that we have our own way of experience these emotions, and there's no right or wrong how you should feel about one person or the other. So it might be just about the experiences you share together, that you might have a bit of a different feelings for one and the other, which doesn't mean that you love one person less. So just acknowledging that it's fine to have different feelings about their loss, and allowing yourself to have these acceptance process. So maybe using here mindfulness techniques to allow yourself to accept these emotions in a healthy way.
Yeah, absolutely. There's another question. How do you help someone who is grieving but doesn't want to receive support? That is absolutely normal as well. Sometimes people want to grieve a little bit on their own before reaching out to others, or maybe they just never will reach out to others. But just let them know that you are there in case they want to reach out, and that there's signposting options and professional support available in case they don't want to reach out to people who they are close to. Maybe they want to reach out to other people who have experienced the same thing, or receive professional support from somebody externally. So make sure that you show them some signposting and that you're there just in case, but leave them to process this on their own if they really want to.
Yeah. There's another question: how would you support someone who has experienced the loss of a baby or pregnancy loss? And I think it's similar to what we said before. So it's all about this support we can provide for the person, like being let the person know that you're there, being honest about your feelings, just really not worrying about what words you use, and listening to what the person experiences, but also encouraging the person. And this might be then a help if you look out for specific support options at the website we provided you with for support which is specialized, for example, in losing a child or a baby. So this is something you could do, for example, doing the research and just providing the person with the support so that they don't have to go into the internet or do it by themselves.
How do you overcome a specific sad reoccurring memory? Yeah. It is, of course, like normal to have these reoccurring memories coming up, especially when you're going through the painful stage of losing someone. Sometimes it can get to the point where it might even disrupt your sleep. It's good to let these memories come in and not try to suppress them. Let these memories let yourself experience these memories, let yourself feel the emotions of these memories. Maybe have a journal next to you and write down the emotions you feel as you experience these memories. Write down these memories and associate the feelings to them. Make them practical, make them real. Your way of working through them, because one day these memories will come back and you will not feel pain from them, but one day when you have come to a stage of being able to adapt, you will be able to have these memories and be happy with these memories and feel nostalgic with these memories.
Jane posted in the chat some support groups for someone losing a child or baby. So this might be a helpful option to look at to provide your friend with these details.
Yeah, and Mark also posted something on families and carer networks, which provide support for miscarriages. I'm just gonna copy paste this into the chat.
I think it's tailored for Santander though, so this might be.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, this is just for Santander.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So for all the Santander employees, but I'm sure maybe your employee assistance program can signpost you to something tailored for your organization or your HR, but also the general ones which are out there really helpful.
Yeah, make sure you reach out to your employee assistance programs as well. They will usually be helpful to guide you in the right directions.